At least 8 people died and hundreds more were rescued after a glacier broke and triggered an avalanche close to the Indo-China border on Friday. The Police Director General of India's Uttarakhand state, where the avalanche struck, said that at least 384 people were rescued by army personnel. Road access was cut off in at least 4 locations due to multiple landslides after the avalanche. The Chief Minister of the state took an aerial survey of the region and said that efforts were being made to revive communication networks as roads were closed due to heavy snowfall.
Amidst worsening COVID-19 crisis in India, Singapore became the first country from which India procured essentials. India on Saturday procured 4 oxygen tanks from Singapore. The process starts a major initiative to procure more essentials like tanks, remdesivir and oxygen from countries across the globe. India will soon be procuring these essentials from the UAE, Germany, France, Russia, the UK, EU, Australia and China have also offered their support. Meanwhile, SpiceJet on Saturday lifted 800 oxygen concentrators from Hong Kong to Delhi for emergency use in India. SpiceJet plans to bring more than 10,000 oxygen concentrators in the coming days from the globe.
On the way out of Crimea, but very much still in charge. Russia's land, sea and air forces are heading back to their bases after 2 weeks of exercises along the border with Ukraine and in the Black Sea. It was a mobilization big enough to worry NATO, with at least 100,000 Russian soldiers estimated to have been involved. But Russia is keeping up the pressure on its neighbour by closing the Kerch Strait to the Ukrainian Navy. This links the Black Sea to the Sea of Azov and Ukraine's eastern ports.
Russia's main motive is to demonstrate that it controls Crimea. Because Russia has recognized Crimea as part of Russia for the very reason to control this equatory around the peninsula. And closing down this strait, it demonstrates who is the master in this part of the Black Sea and in the Azov Sea.
Aboard the Ocean Viking, shortly after a distress call has been received. The rescue vessel heads towards the boat in distress. It was a desperate race against time and 10 hours of rough sailing as the storm raged through the night, with waves up to 6 meters high. Despite repeated calls for assistance from all the boats participating in the search and rescue operation, no state-led organization coordinated the rescue. European Border Control Agency Frontex sent a surveillance plane 7 hours after the first distress call. This is the aftermath of the tragedy. On Thursday morning, the Ocean Viking arrived on the site of the shipwreck of a rubber boat which had around 130 people on board trying to reach Europe. Men, women and children. There were no survivors.
It's a huge campaign to clean up Conakry in what the government says is an effort to develop Guinea. But in the process, thousands of families are being evicted, their homes razed to the ground. Many of the forced evictions are happening in the capital. areas with a mix of small businesses, residential buildings and informal dwellings. The Guinean government says the land belongs to the state and those living there are squatters, even though many have proof of ownership. These satellite images show the extent of house demolition in 2019 alone. An estimated 20,000 Guineans lost their homes then and many more since.
The Targa Tasmania race has been rocked by a third death in 24 hours with another fatal crash on the rally's final day.
It's been confirmed 2 male drivers aged 58 and 69 have died after smashing into a tree here in southern Tasmania earlier today. Just before midday, the Porsche was racing along Wattle Grove Road at Cygnet, around 50 kilometres out of Hobart, when it lost control on the gravel and collided passenger side first with a tree. Pieces of the vehicle were left scattered on the road and over the adjoining paddock. Now, this incident means there has been 3 fatalities in the last 2 days in this year's Targa Tasmania. 68-year-old driver Shane Navin died yesterday after crashing his 1979 Mazda at the Mount Arrowsmith stage. His co-driver Glenn Evans sustained no injuries.
Huda, good morning to you. I mean, we just take a look at the kind of support and the number of people who are being supported during this difficult time as a result of these relief grants. It doesn't seem fair, does it, that it's just simply taken away for those who need it most. And some critics are saying that money's been diverted to businesses who are able to stand on their own 2 feet.
It is important to emphasize the struggle that people in South Africa are having, and the government needs to see that through a human rights lens. We've had 2 calls for an extension which has been granted, but government needs to stop this piecemeal short extensions. And when we have this looming termination at the end of April, while the conditions of why the grant was introduced in the first place is still existing and still will exist for a long time to come.